Oh, when you wait on Cheryl?
No,
I haven't heard anything.
I just was curious.
I haven't. Let's see.
Probably busy during your administration.
You know, I appreciate you holding me accountable to my own comments. It's good. That's what I love about you. What I love about you. Okay, here we go.
Have something to do.
So. It's the first time I've had the script. There we go. All right. We're all right. Hello, and let's call our first meeting of this session of governance committee to order. Let's see. We have new student and faculty liaisons. So let me make sure that I'm not messing up anybody's name. I hope I'm not. Student advisory committee. Is that what COM means? Committee? Just want to make sure I'm saying that's not communications.
Yes.
Student advisory committee liaisons, Bella Price from Emporia State, Shaden Haynes from Washburn, and Olivia Gallegos. Did I say that right? From Wichita State. And Council of Faculty Senate President's Liaisons, Dr. Susan Castro from Wichita State and Dr. Nate Brunsell. Did I say that right?
I think so.
From Kansas, University of Kansas.
In here on the line, I don't see, are they? No.
They may join throughout the year, but
Yeah, that's perfect. We're grateful for them. Welcome. Thanks for serving in these ways. So, all right, we need to approve the minutes from May 18th, 2022. So I will actually make that motion since I was at the meeting, and I'll ask for a second.
I'll second, although this violates my long-standing policy of not voting on minutes for meetings I wasn't at.
Well, I appreciate it. I cannot.
Them if that
I
helps.
don't believe I can both first and second that, so I needed your help
Yeah,
there.
I
Thank you
second,
for
I
breaking your
No,
own.
and it's my full confidence that will let me vote yes for this, even though I wasn't there. So,
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, unanimous. We're off to a great start. All right, let's review and adopt our agenda topics scheduled for the year. Julene, will you present these items, please, for
Mr.
us?
Chairman, thank you. So a draft of the committee topics is under tab 2, so page 4 of your materials. And then the schedule is right after that. On the topics, I was unsure whether this committee wanted to oversee the board website for dashboard updates, whether you wanted that to be one of your topics. So you'll see I have a question up there on that first topic, 2301, page 4. So that's a question for this committee.
You know, when you're saying that, are you talking about the layout of it? I know I kind of brought this up at the end of the last year, right? And it for me, I'm trying to remember my interest in it was, I think, a little more around the back end technology around it. But do you remember?
Well, no.
Okay.
But I do know that you've got Regent Lane and Regent Kiblinger working on some of the what the dashboard might include. And I just didn't know if that's, you know, a standalone sort of committee that's going to do that work, or if you wanted this committee to be actually responsible for that and any other website update issues. I don't remember the exact conversation, but you did have an interest in it last.
Yeah,
Sure.
it was a little more about how the traffic was coming in and out, and how, you know, how we're using it. It was more from a design, from like who was actually coming to our website, and, you know, who we were designing it for and how we thought it was going to get used.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more so than it was the dashboard side of it. But
Okay.
you know, let me ask Carl here, or Regent Ice. with the dashboard subcommittee that we have going, would you want them reporting to governance or just reporting to the full board on that work? You have a thought?
I don't have a strong opinion, but I think if pressed, I'd say, yeah, I think it might be nice if we heard it before it went to the whole
Okay.
board.
So let's do have that
Okay.
group be working, and then they'll come to here and then we'll pass it on.
Okay, I will add that to, I'll just include it in that first topic.
And I say that along the lines of priority that you and
Mhm.
me by extension have placed on continuity and so forth. So I believe that we won't want to do this more than once.
Yep.
Once we set these, we'll want them to run for some period of time. So I think governance having a look at it's helpful.
Yep. And I think my interest in the website design was more like, I just would love to be knowledgeable what's going on, not necessarily a website.
Okay,
I believe a website design needs to come through governance for approval.
okay, so just the dashboard then.
Yeah.
Okay,
But as you work on the new website, I'd love to.
I have a whole bunch of data that we're running through with you on our traffic patterns and where we're taking our future design because of where we know people are going and what they need.
Perfect. Thank you. That's what I was interested in.
so sorry.
Yeah, keep going.
The other thing on the agenda topics then was last year, this committee decided instead of having an annual security report from each campus, like they had been doing for several years before that we would just go to a biannual, which would make this year the year that those reports would come. But this isn't something that's, required of this committee. So you can do a number of different things with the security reports. We could, again, just ask the campuses if they have anything they need to bring to this committee or anything that they're concerned about that they want to share, and just do it that way again. Or I can go ahead and set all of them up for a face-to-face or online report. And we've been doing them orally so that we don't have any issue with protecting records.
So is your question, do we want to stick with the plan to do biannual or do we want to go back to annual? Is that the?
Yes, or if you don't think we need to do them at all, there's nothing in the board policy and there's nothing in the your charter that requires that particular item to be on this committee's agenda. There are a couple of things, like if they have adequate security measures they want to add to their campus, those things by policy have to come to this committee.
Is there a reason why it became a standing annual item? Do we know what the history was?
So when in 2007, when Virginia Tech incident occurred, incident's not a good word for that, but when that happened, we started focusing more. We actually hired a consultant to come in and look at all of the institutions' practices, policies, protocols around safety and security. They reported back, and then we spent some time implementing those recommendations. And as part of that, the board decided they wanted annual reports. At that time, there was no governance committee, so they were being made to the Fiscal Affairs and Audit Committee. And then when this committee was created and charged, that became something that this committee would do, just because Fiscal Affairs is usually so jammed up with a lot of other things. So
I think it's important that we have some regular. I don't have a strong opinion whether it's annual or biannual. Regent, I have any thoughts?
Well, I don't think it's a good idea at this point to say, oh, let's do triannual so we don't have to do them this year. So it almost doesn't matter if we think it's annual or biannual, we'd have to do them this year. So why don't we do them this year, see how they go, and then see if that informs us for what we think the time frame should look like.
So you do all 6 this year?
At least whatever we were going to take on, but I think the answer is yes, or we're not fulfilling what we said. I just think it's bad form that we used to do it annually, and then we said, let's do it biannually. And then it gets to the year we're supposed to do them, and then we go, let's delay them again. So
I'd agree. I would not suggest we delay them again. The question is, do we feel comfortable with looking at them, at a campus every other year on how security is doing? And then if they need changes to it in between that time that they come to us and ask for approval of those changes. Would that be the question? I understand that, right? Yeah.
Right. and-
Well, I guess I don't see it that way. I mean, we already made the decision every other year was okay, and now we're due.
Well,
So-
no. We were doing annual, and last year we decided, so she's asking.
So
if
we
this
skipped,
governance
but we
committee-
skipped last
We
year.
did.
Correct.
So.
Oh, we did skip last year.
Yes, so we haven't, so we've got to do them this year,
Oh.
or we didn't fulfill the buy-in.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had 3 going one year, 3 going the other year.
No.
No,
and
okay,
yeah,
yes.
well, we did have 2 campuses come in, but because they needed
Okay.
to adjust their adequate security measures, not because they were giving. a
Then I
report.
100% agree with you.
So I think we do
Sorry, I
it
was
this year, and
missing-
then we revisit the timing after we've done
Yeah.
it this year. So.
Bring them all.
Okay, bring them all.
I would also encourage the board to continue oversight of this.
Yep.
I mean, a little more hands-on. After the tragedy, campuses really began to focus on it and really even outside of the board scrutiny. I mean, everybody focused on it, but as you know, it's easy to start relaxing a little. And so I think, not saying we're doing that at all, but I think the board touching base every other year is a good thing.
All right, I will, I think if you look at your schedule, I did pencil them in.
Yeah.
So we do, I prepared for that. So, and like the one, when you're at Pitt State, we'll do Pitt States then, so that that person doesn't have to travel for a meeting, that kind of thing. So that's all I had in terms of questions for you on those 2 items, unless I missed something that you want to include, or if there's something on there you don't want to do anymore, let me know. And
The only thing I'd, Carl, or Region Ice, is we've talked through looking at the way we provide feedback and review compensation on our CEOs. Are you comfortable with the timeline that we've been on, or do we need to revisit that where that hits our schedule?
I think I'm comfortable with the timeline, but when we come to that topic today, I'm not comfortable saying we know all the changes we'd like to make, because I feel like we had more than that we talked about last year.
Yep.
So I think it's fine that we do a couple every time, and the way this is laid out, it's not optimal, but I think expecting to do more would be creating calendar challenges. So I'm okay with that, and then we just need to make our process adjustments.
Okay. All right, so
I'm not prepared to articulate at this point. So I'd have to go back and look at some of what we talked about before, but we had a set of things we thought were important to do.
some of
Not-
them might be further down.
It is, I read all of it. I say I don't think it
Okay.
captures everything I feel like I had
Oh,
talked about
okay.
before.
Okay,
But in the crush of things going on, I didn't have time to go back to look at everything else. And I didn't think really wise if we had to do that today.
no,
See, one of the things is I think the self-evaluations still are too big, too much. And it becomes its own exercise that then we wind up, if I understand this right, some of our CEOs even have others on campus help them do it and all that. I just don't think it should be that burdensome to have a reasonable feedback conversation. But I can't turn that into an actual recommendation as we sit here right now. And that's just one person's opinion.
no, you and I are aligned on that.
Okay.
So it's 2 persons' opinions.
Okay.
A quorum's worth, actually. Okay, anything else on this before we take a vote on it?
not from me.
Region Ice, anything before? Okay. I'm going to call for a motion to adopt the agenda topics and schedule as discussed.
So moved.
I will second. All in favor, please say aye.
Hallelujah, brother.
All right, all opposed, same side. Amen. Motion carries. Okay, on to section 3 committee topics. Julene, let's discuss board member conflict of interest disclosures.
Okay, this one's fairly easy. Didn't have a lot to report this year. Plus, today, you're only seeing 6 of 9 because I felt like it wasn't enough time to allow the 3 new regions to report subsequent to the confirmation oversight committee hearing and get that prepared in time for this meeting. So I'm going to ask them to report sometime between now and the November meeting, and I'll bring those, or someone will bring those in November.
But you have briefed them on the policy, I presume.
I will have briefed them on the policy, but I haven't, they had so many materials coming to them this last couple of
I
weeks.
can be aligned with that, but we do want to feel like they know and they take actions. today.
Sure, I will
If
send
they're
them,
Record with any policies
right,
in today's vote.
we orientation, we talked about it a little bit. I'll send them all the materials and then open line of communication. They can certainly talk to whoever they want to talk to make sure they understand what they're doing. So for today, it's just the 6, and there were just 3 items to report. I actually did include Regent Dykus, assuming the board approves that appointment to Washburn. I did go ahead and put that one in here. It's a conflict in accordance with our policy, but it's statutorily required that you have a regent on the Board of Regents for Washburn. And so it's a necessary evil, I guess. I don't know if that's the right terminology.
Not an evil, but
Necessary.
Necessary. And then there's a couple of transactional items. Regent Kiblinger's spouse continues to have a contract with at least one of the campuses to do some teaching type work. And that's fairly minimal, $7,000 a year. And then Regent Ice has an ownership interest in a radio station that does some advertising for one of the community colleges. And then a company called Rack Coach that has a business relationship with Dodge City Community College. I assume those relationships still are current.
Yes, yeah, for our conversation.
Right.
And
Now, do you ever do any DJing on there?
No, I have not. I did do the color of a basketball game once about 10 years ago, but they no longer have the contract for county basketball. So I have nothing to do with the ongoing operation of these stations, and the rack company stuff is in there in an abundance of caution because we own like a fraction of 1%. So, and I've had no distributions, and I'm not actively involved in those either. So,
And
in an effort to be helpful to a young businessman.
we have not included the membership on the Board of Trustees for the K-State Foundation because it's really technically not a conflict the way the board's policy is written.
Yep.
But in past years, you've wanted to mention it anyway, just to, again, transparency, abundance of caution. So, and that's what I have on there. And the recommendations are similar, same as what we've done in the past, that we recommend that those regents be allowed to continue to participate on those boards, the Washburn board, and that the 2 regents with the transactional items be just asked to recuse themselves if anything would come before the board that's related to those items, and recuse means leave the room basically while it's being discussed and then acted on.
Perfect. I like that. Any discussion or questions before we take a vote on this?
And I will abstain from this one since I'm in the exceptions.
Should we have you leave the room?
Glad Cheryl's arrived. Yeah, I don't think I have to leave. I don't think I have to leave.
No,
we'll put
I'm
that
good.
in the record too.
Yeah, that'd be in the record. Okay, so do I have a motion to adopt? Yes.
I'll offer a motion that we approve the recommendations from council to allow those regents to continue with the disclosure of the contract.
Thank you, Regent Harrison Lee. I second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. You can mark me down as an aye also. All right. Julian, back to you again.
I should
I know, this is great. Can you, let's talk about the topic of amending athletic conference changes to policy.
You bet. So this one is on page 10, which is tab 5 of your materials. The proposed amendment is to require that the board vice chair, as well as the board chair and president and CEO, approve these negotiate, before you enter into negotiations, but also to add discussions and final action to any decision to change conferences.
And just to bring a little color to that, I think there was some confusion over what is negotiating. So what this would cover is really any discussion, which, as we know, discussions can turn into negotiations pretty quickly, and it gets pretty fluid. So this would cover that piece.
Yeah, and it also adds before
Adds
final
one.
decision is made,
Right.
which I think is important too. And adds the board's vice chairman to the conversation. So I've reviewed this. I like this. Any questions or discussion? Region Ice, Region Harrison Lee on the subject.
Not for me.
All right, well, we need to vote on this. So anybody want to?
So moved.
Got a motion. Do I have a second? All right, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. There we go. We're making progress. Look, you guys, moving right along. Julene, how you doing? Let's discuss proposed changes to the CEO assessment processes and tools.
All right, so under tab 6 of your materials, that's page 11, there's a tracked document that shows what I understood the proposed changes to the process to be that we collected feedback from regents and I tried to incorporate that here. Some of these things we've already started doing, but they just weren't in the document until now. Other things we would begin doing if this committee agrees that this is what you wanted and take it from there. Then there's also a proposed, I don't know if you want me to stop there. There's several things in there. We want to go over them.
Let's walk through the substantive changes here and then.
Okay. So one suggestion was to better utilize the 3 regent committees and have.
You're welcome to sit at the table.
It's okay.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
we're an inclusive bunch. Okay.
And have at least one member of each of those 3 regent committees when they have their meetings to sort of take mental note of the more important substantive items so that those can be reported back to the full board when you do your consensus statement building. That would be the first blue bullet there. And then the second bullet there, that's just to help staff to comply with the notice requirements of the Open Meetings Act. We need to know when the 3 regent committees are meeting because we have an individual who's requested notice of those meetings. So we need to make sure that we know when they are so that we can provide that notice.
And why do we have to do that when there's only 3 of us?
Because the board created these committees for an official function. And so the committee itself is subject to the act.
Okay.
So if you have 2 of the 3 members talking about that business, then we have to comply with the Open Meetings Act.
Sure, not impossible. One of us might talk to one of those folks when we weren't really having a meeting. I wouldn't think this would cover that.
If it's just a one-on-one between a regent and the CEO, that's not a problem. If it's a 2-on-1 and it's 2 members of that same committee, then it's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
We won't talk, there's no reason to do this in the abstract.
Yeah.
But we could run each other in the hallway, but anyway, and something could come up, but
Right.
Okay. I know how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. I don't want to be in technical
Right.
default.
It's one of the reasons we're having this conversation and we do the orientations is it is hard to think about when you're in the moment, and it's just one of those things.
Okay, all right.
Let's see.
And
move
on the
on.
first one, I mean, I think this is what we talked about in relation to the evaluation. I still think it leaves something of an open question about communication from the 3-person committees to the whole board on an ongoing basis, but we can leave that for another day.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is just the evaluation process
Right,
specifically.
I understand. So that's why I just want to make sure we don't leave it to, I mean, I think part of the issue is at least some appetite for the things that come up at the 3-person committee that the rest of the board ought to know about in a timely fashion.
Okay,
And
so,
so, again, I think this is fine for the topic we're on, but I just don't want anybody to accidentally think that means that's the only time we have to have our mental notes in the right communications.
oh, right, and yeah,
That's all, that's it.
I understand. I think it hasn't been, even the substance of stuff hasn't been being conveyed. It just
No,
wasn't, yeah, okay. So, all right, next bullet, next page, let me just refresh my memory here.
More about the self-assessment.
Right, and just kind of put to paper what the most recent directions for those self-assessments have been in terms of including one for legislative engagement, including one for, at least one for a board strategic plan goal, and then didn't write it down here, but I think there's been a desire to have facilities maintenance as part of the discussion too. And then I don't know if you want to continue relaxing the 2-page executive summary requirement, but we did that last year just because it's 10 pages. And so if you take up 2 with executive summary, and then you're basically repeating yourself.
Yeah, we're not going to tackle this today, but this is one of the elements that I think we, before we get to this point in the year, at the end of this cycle, we may even change some of the definition on it, but I'm comfortable with this language for today on it.
Well,
Richard,
I
if
know
you want
that.
to tackle it,
I
okay.
think that's what I said earlier. I'm comfortable that
Yep.
you've well captured, the things you wrote down are well captured things we talked about. But I think we've got more work we want to do. Maybe relaxing the 2 pages means we should be asking for less, not giving them more latitude, and write it longer, for instance. But look, all for another day.
Yeah, we just need to make sure we tackle that before January, because that's when the cycle starts, right? Unless President Mason, have you already started on yours? Do we need to get?
Not yet.
Okay, good. So we got some time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have made progress from 40 pages.
Yes. The
to
notebooks.
10. Yeah, so,
Let the
and
record
we,
show that any comment did not mean that progress had never been made.
President
That wasn't the
Schultz
point.
was the winner for the heaviest one always, so.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the rest of that is just hopefully clarification. And then the second to the last bullet, that's to just to remind staff not to send the draft consensus statements out to the CEOs until just a week ahead of time, ahead of their face-to-face meeting. And the last bullet, that's something we've been doing for a while. It just hadn't been incorporated into the process or the written process.
Can I just ask one question? How come President Linton's stuff is due with, oh, sorry, I jumped ahead.
That's okay.
Is due with President Flanders when he's on the schedule of Chancellor Drought and President Mason?
So I originally had him on the same schedule as President Flanders, but because it's a one-day meeting at Pitt State, I thought that it would be more difficult to include 2 evaluations at that meeting. So we pushed, well, you'll do this, the regents will do the assessment and we'll build that into, your 2, 2, and 2. But his actual face-to-face evaluation with you would occur the next month when you have a full 2-day meeting and more time.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Is there something I'm forgetting?
Yeah, it just, you wouldn't have to evaluate three CEOs at once, so that's why we split it out. You'd still be evaluating two, but you'd just be pushing the face-to-face.
I got it. Thank you.
And then the final piece on this is starting on page 15. There's just you've seen it before many times. It's the generic version of the tool with some edits. Most of these came from Regent Winter. Some of them I feel like are adding criteria. And so my recommendation would be to not implement them until the 2024 cycle, because the CEOs are already in the middle of the 2023 cycle in terms of what their goals are already set, and they're already working toward those goals. And so, and I think that with the work on the data that is happening, you may also want to include more substantive. So this may not be the final version of what you want to do in 2024. And I thought we can combine all of that maybe, and then my recommendation is to push the actual changes to 2024 cycle.
Region Ice.
Makes sense to me,
Okay.
especially since we're gonna have opinions about form in general.
Yeah, okay, so this wouldn't be, so when we're not taking a vote on this, you're just walking us through it.
Right.
Okay, do you understand what we're saying? When we're doing that, we'll want to do more work on this in conjunction, okay? So we'll just make sure we create space to do that in our calendar here.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure you're okay with pushing it, because if you're not, then we need to move faster to get it in place. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. You two comfortable with that, Region Harrison Lee? Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, and I would want to make sure that we've had an opportunity to kind of get some feedback from the CEOs on the recommended changes to the criteria as well.
Okay. If we wait until we have
Yeah,
data piece,
I'm good with
that's
that.
okay?
I'm good
Okay.
with waiting. I just, once
Yeah.
we change the instrument, I would just like for them to see it and get their feedback.
Which is nice, I agree.
Any other discussion on this? I'm just gonna reiterate there's some process related issues we will probably clear up for the 2023 cycle. The instrument changes we will be working for the 2024 cycle.
Yes. And
That's a good point.
yes.
And then we'll make sure we get input from additional. We got 3 new board members then, we want to get input from presidents and CEOs, chancellors. So that work for everybody? Was a good summary?
It's good.
All right. I got 2 of the best regions in the business right here to my left. Good shape. Okay. Anything else on that, Julian?
That's it from me.
Okay. Crystal, we have a contract to review.
We do. Thank you. So I'm Crystal Puterbaugh, Director for Academic Affairs in the Private Post-Secondary Education Unit. And the Private and Out-of-State Post-Secondary Educational Institution Act authorizes the board to regulate private and out-of-state institutions that are operating in Kansas. And in order for those institutions to operate in Kansas, they must seek a certificate of approval. And to do that, they submit a large application to the board with lots of information and documentation for our staff to review as evidence of them meeting those minimum requirements. In 2011, the board contracted with Advera, which was previously Cyan Education Services, to create a web-based workflow system and processing for maintaining this information and following our workflow. Steve, is everything good? Can you guys hear me okay?
You're loud. I'll try to turn it down.
Okay.
You're just right.
Okay, good deal. Sorry, I'm at a conference in Louisville, so otherwise I'd be there. But so in 2011, we created this web-based system through Advera, and use that for our entire workflow process and reporting aspects required under the Act. Our agreements with EdVera expired on October 31st of 2019, and the Kansas Department of Administration recommended that the contract be put out for bid. So we put out an RFP seeking an efficient workflow system and application system. EdVera was the only bidder in that process. And although there were no other proposals submitted, we as staff were happy with the proposal that was submitted and felt that it demonstrated their ability to continue to satisfy the requirements of the RFP and the needs of the staff in reviewing these applications. So on October 18th of 2019, we awarded EdVera the contract for these services. It was an initial 3-year contract period, so it will expire on October 31st of 2022. The contract does provide for options to renew for 3 additional 2-year periods. So board staff is requesting that the governance committee authorize the board president and CEO to exercise this renewal, extending the contract, which will have the same terms and obligations for the 2 additional years, which would take it out to October 31st of 2024. We are also requesting this authorization for future renewal extensions. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Crystal? Nice job, Crystal. Did you have to pack those headphones with you all the way to Louisville?
I did, because I wasn't sure what the meeting setup would be. And I'm glad I did, because there was actually people in here cleaning up the tables. I thought I found an empty conference room, but.
Any questions for Crystal on this? So this fits under TUS because it's a 3-year contract, not because of the size of it, right?
It crosses the threshold when it goes from 3 to the next 2 years, so.
Correct.
I have no issue with the renewal, and I'm perfectly comfortable with President Flanders doing this work. But I would like to recognize that every time you redo an option, it's a chance to talk about terms. So if there's something to improve or more options to get for later, I'd encourage you to explore that.
Will do. Thank you.
Yep. And we saved some money, it looked like, on some fees by taking it out to bid, even though they're the only ones. They contractually, if we just rolled it over, it would have been 54,000 or something like that, if I remember right.
Even flat.
Yeah, so those are flat. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take we need to vote on this. So is there a motion to approve? All right, it's been motion seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, the motion carries.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Crystal, get back to the fun. You could go
All
tour
right.
the Louisville Slugger Museum.
All right.
Thank you. All right, Blake, can you present any updates to Building a Future?
Yeah, I can. I actually can. So,
Would you then?
yeah, yes. So I would like to talk a little bit about what some of the work that we've done on the dashboard to highlight the first pillar. And I think as we've talked to Regent Lane and Regent Kiblinger, it might be the best use of time to really flesh out the first pillar and be able to kind of graphically show some of those. I call them leading indicators. We're calling them supporting metrics as we look to improve the actual numbers such as retention and graduation rates. I think also that some of those supporting metrics could be incorporated into performance agreements if the institution saw that, because those would be leading that final indicator. And I'd just turn it over to Matt Keith to talk a little more about what our progress has been there.
So the subcommittee that Regents Lane, Kiblinger, and President Numa and President Ship have been on has come up with a revised list, some of the same metrics, some new metrics that they're proposing, or some different ways of looking at some of the current metrics. I know Regent Lane's planning to run through those at the full board meeting, but they really tried to take a look at how can we maybe revise some of the metrics, incorporate a lot of the things from the NIST reports into the metrics, since that gave some new things along the lines of scholarship dollars and how they're being targeted at students. as well as indicators that we tied to upcoming possible board initiatives, depending on what the board votes on, things like meta majors or the general education package, which after it's developed in 2024. So there's a pretty good list of changes. And I think the foundational indicators and supporting indicators was what that group came up with for renaming what we had been calling leading indicators and lagging indicators.
So you said foundational and supporting?
Foundational and supporting.
And to add, I think if we're going to improve our outcomes for pillar one, we really need to drill into the NISS playbooks. And, you know, I know Dr. Archer now is kind of doing an environmental scan of the institutions because we're in different places. So some institutions may have already transitioned to centralized advising. Some still need to do that, you know, so we're trying to determine, and that's with the state universities, obviously, that we're going to do more work. I believe Washburn University is asked to be part of that next review, some of the community colleges. So how do we just continue to move forward with the best practices and the promising practices that are out there? You know, another one, not sure this came from NISS, but would be the co-requisite remediation. So are we still doing remediation in a way that we know that doesn't work, or are we moving to the co-requisite model? And this is a way to monitor those activities as well. So appreciate Matt Key's work on this and that committee's work.
Great. Questions for President Flanders? All right. Nice job. Thank you for the update. All right, let's call for a motion. Yes.
I have a question before we do that. So after when the executive session is, we come back to this group. I mean, I do have one thing of other business I wanted to at least.
Yeah, let's take care of that now. So then when we can adjourn when we come out.
So it's not a topic for this committee's schedule yet because it's not that well formed. But I think you wanted to contemplate this committee taking on the role of a nominating committee at some point for our next slate of officers. So that's something we probably want to talk more broadly with the board about. But if that all happens, that would be something that we pick up in this charter at some point, I think.
Yep.
If you're still inclined to may have that.
I would, yeah. I think both Regent Ice and I, we've had some conversations the system out of about re-looking at how we do the vote at the end of the year on officers for the regents. And so that's what we're talking about.
Yes,
So
yes, sir.
he's got some promising practices from some other boards that he's been a part of that I think we want to look at and then socialize with the board. But that would be something I think would come out of governance some point this year.
So the concept would be the governance committee would be like I've got in other organizations, more of the nominating committee.
Yeah, it's still,
That's at least an idea.
that's an idea. Yeah, we haven't fully fleshed this out yet, but
And I think it would be bad if we said, this committee said, here's what we're going to do, and then we inform everybody else when we're changing the practice. So that's why I don't think we wanted it to be on this meeting as an agenda item or anything else. We just need to do it in a timely enough fashion that we can cover it when the natural.
this would be another one I'd want to have done by the end of the year, similar to some of the CEO evaluation stuff. Talk about, so, yeah. Just a little idea right now. We just need to cultivate it, get a bunch of people's input, think through it. But thank you for raising it up and getting it out there. Any other business, old or new, that come before this committee today?
Okay.
All right, here and now.
When I have a motion, I feel a lot of pressure because I've seen these done really well.
You
for
gotta really throw yourself into it, Regina.
I move the committee of the board, this committee of the Board of Regents